Welcome to 18th Century Cooking. We've been doing a series of recipes based on other cultures that influence North American cooking in the 18th century. Today we're doing a Swiss recipe. Thanks for joining us today. First, a special thanks to Remo. He found a recipe book from the mid-18th century for Bernese cooking, Swiss cooking in the 18th century. He did some translation work. So here's what we got to work with. This is a sort of Bernese cooking pamphlet, originally published in 1749. After that, they added some recipes. I'm not sure exactly which version we're working from here, but it's the 18th century version of it. This particular recipe, I wanted something a little different, and he picked out 5 or 6 recipes. Many of them are very different from cooking that we're used to. This one is called a mint sandwich, or a mint open-faced sandwich. Let me read this to you. His translation. Take good mint leaves, cut them in strips, fry them in fresh butter, add ginger and salt, make slices from white bread, and roast them over the embers lightly. Add the fried mint onto it and put it onto a plate. There's some interpretation there. Add fresh butter, let them fry a bit, then bring them to the table. You can also let them cook in cream. They become not half bad. Great, very interesting recipe, not half bad. That's what we're shooting for today, not half bad. I've got some mint here. Some of it I picked out of our herb garden, and I've got some other kind of store-bought here, peppermint. We're gonna work with that today. So let's get started on this recipe. First, we need some mint, and I'm gonna go ahead and what we want is mint with fairly large leaves. We're gonna pick these leaves off and start slicing them up. Okay, there's our batch of mint. Hopefully I've got enough here. I just, again, put this in strips. I mean, I might, if I was interpreting this differently, chop it up, but it seems to say cut it in slices. So we're gonna leave it in slices. Now we just need a little butter. Let's put it in the frying pan. As soon as our pan is up to heat and our butter is melted, let's put in our slivers or our slices of mint and start moving them around. We don't want them to burn, so we have to be careful about how hot this gets. But once these are cooked up or starting to cook up, we can add in a little bit of ginger. We can add in a little bit of salt. It all depends on how much spicing you want in this. Once they cook down or they seem to be cooked all over, let's get these off the fire. And now we need to work on our toasts. So this recipe calls for the use of white bread. So we've got, this is probably a fairly well-to-do recipe, using this higher end bread instead of brown bread or some kind of household bread. Now our toasts are ready. We need to get these back into the pan. So we're gonna have our butter. Now let's put our toasts in so that they can start cooking. And put it that way. There we go, there's our toast. Now, in comes the mint. We're going to put that on top. Okay, like so. Spread that around. Next, we're going to add a little bit of butter to the top of each of these, just to get some butter up on top. So this needs one more ingredient. That is a little bit of nutmeg. Nutmeg goes really well with ginger. So let's just scrape just a half touch of nutmeg over the top. There you go. Now for our last ingredient, he said that we could add cream to this. Cooking cream gets better. So we're gonna add a little bit of cream. We're gonna let this cool off just a hair. There we go, that's better. Now we're gonna cover this and let this cook up for a minute or two. Well, here are our mint toasts, fried toast or mint sandwich. Looks very interesting. It's certainly got a little bit different smell. I tested this out in the modern kitchen last night and I was unimpressed. But with the way this is smelling out here today in this kitchen, I'm pretty excited to get a taste of just how this worked out. So let's cut into this and find out. just as the recipe states, not half bad. Really, this one turned out a lot better out here in the kitchen. I think it has to do with the smoke. Probably, I didn't add nutmeg last night. It's probably a little bit of nutmeg and the cream addition. So I would definitely suggest going ahead and adding the cream in on this one. Definitely changes it. You can almost read that right into the recipe that cooking this in the cream helps a lot. You might even put a little cream over the top. I'm not sure. But it's totally different. This putting mint on the sandwich, you know, we're not used to using, or certainly I'm not used to using mint in cooking very much, except, you know, as a light herb thing occasionally. This has a main kind of mint taste on top, and I'm not sure that this recipe wasn't actually meant for a Lent type celebration or a springtime, because you've got spring greens here. So it's a good time of year when you don't have a lot of other kind of vegetables or meats ready, or you've run out of those things and you want to have that kind of new green flavor in the spring. This would be one of those great recipes for that. But we have mint basically all year round, so that's great, really very interesting recipe from Switzerland, or the Swiss, in the mid-18th century. If you're new to the channel and you've enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe because we have new episodes coming out all the time. And of course, we have hundreds of episodes in our back catalog. You can check those out. We also do a live stream every Friday at 4 o'clock Eastern time, where we do lots of Q&A and talking about wonderful topics. So if you're interested in that, make sure to check out the live stream. And I want to thank you for coming along on this journey as we discover all of these wonderful things that are happening in the 18th century with foods and how that relates to foods today. It's so much fun, and we get some great comments. I want to thank you for sharing our videos and for all your great comments. And thanks for coming along today as we savor the flavors and the aromas of the 18th century.